evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
March 8, 2014, Boeing 777 MH370, scheduled from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. An airplane that pilots consider to be the best, but on this fateful night, the best disappeared without a trace. The greatest aviation mystery of all time. 239 people aboard, and then nothing. Disappeared into thin air or the depths of the deep ocean. With so many theories around it, mechanical failure, hijacking, or a plot suicide, where do the answers lie? Even after 10 years of MH370's disappearance, it still remains the greatest mystery of aviation. What do we know so far? What happened that night?
MH370 lost contact with Subang Air Traffic Control this morning.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight.
Malaysia Airlines flight.
The Malaysian Airlines flight
MH370.
MH370 has gone missing.
We believe family members should prepare themselves for the worst.
With 227 passengers, 10 flight attendants, and 2 pilots, at 12:41 a.m., Malaysian Airlines, flight MH370 was set to take off from Kuala Lumpur. The travel time was 6 hours, and the flight was expected to land in Beijing. On the pilot's seat was highly experienced 53-year-old Captain Zaharieh Ahmad Shah, one of the senior-most captains in Malaysian aviation, with a total experience of 18,423 hours of flying. And assisting him was 27-year-old First Officer Farid Hamid. This was planned as a training flight for him. Up in the cockpit that night, while First Officer Farid flew the airplane, Captain Zaharieh handled the radios. The Malaysian flight departed but never landed, and the expected time of arrival in Beijing remained unfilled forever. As the Malaysian airline departs from Kuala Lumpur, the flight flies in the set direction for about 20 minutes. At 1:08 a.m., the flight crosses the Malaysian coastline and reaches above the South China Sea, heading towards Vietnam. First pilot Zaharieh reports that the plane is flying at 35,000 feet. But about 11 minutes later, as the Boeing 777 enters Vietnamese airspace, it suddenly drops off the air control radar. The last voice communication from the crew occurs at 1:19 a.m.
Malaysian 370. Contact Ho Chi Minh on 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370. These words from Captain Zaharieh were the last words from the airplane. At 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, was switched off, and a commercial airplane with 239 people on board had vanished, leaving behind the aviation industry with the biggest mystery to ever solve. Vietnamese air traffic control noticed that MH370 entered their airspace, but then vanished from radar without warning. They tried to contact the plane but couldn't get a response. The Vietnamese controllers forward the alarming news to Kuala Lumpur that MH370 has disappeared. This started an immediate search operation, marking the beginning of what would become the longest and most costly search in aviation history. Efforts to find MH370 began. As the plane was going from Malaysia to Beijing, the initial search began in the South China Sea. An international effort was launched, deploying 34 ships and 28 aircraft from 7 different countries. But despite their collective efforts, nothing was found. With multiple speculations, but hardly any clues. The first significant lead came from the Malaysian military. At 2:22 a.m. on the night of the 8th, Malaysian military radar detected MH370 flying in the opposite direction across Malaysia. Instead of continuing north into Vietnamese airspace, it was found that the plane suddenly made a sharp U-turn shortly after leaving Malaysian civil radar. It flew back over Malaysia and was tracked as it headed northwest up the Strait of Malacca, eventually disappearing from radar just north of Sumatra. The discovery that the plane didn't crash but continued flying on a different route left everyone puzzled. Experts started making initial speculations that it could be a terrorist event or a major failure in the flight systems. The next clue comes from the space. A satellite operated by a British telecommunication company in Muscat intercepted a series of signals originating from MH370. These heartbeat signals were captured above the Indian Ocean. The heartbeat occurred once every hour, whenever the airplane attempted to log in and establish a connection to the satellite's network, and the MH370 heartbeat was detected by the satellite 7 times. This data allowed experts and investigators to chart the course of the missing aircraft. Despite the silence from MH370's cockpit, these heartbeats provided a lifeline of information. They revealed that the aircraft remained in flight for 6 hours after its last known contact. But the signals alone could not tell the plane's direction of flight. So, how did the experts find the location of the missing Malaysian airline? Whenever the satellite received these communications, it adjusted its antenna to lock onto the airplane's signal. By measuring the angle of the satellite's antenna, investigators could calculate the direction of MH370's travel, and to their surprise, something extraordinary was revealed. After its initial track, the plane had turned south, and its final resting place was somewhere in the Indian Ocean, within an area called the 7th Arc. But the search for MH370 was far from over. Still, no one knew the exact location of the plane, and it could be anywhere between Australia and Madagascar in the unexplored depths of the Indian Ocean. From the travel time of each signal, investigators calculated the plane's distance from the satellite. The lines, called arcs, became the new lead in the search. By factoring in fuel load and cruising speed, investigators found a range of possible flight paths as the plane crossed each arc. The 7th arc seemed like the most likely crash site, as there were no more signals after that. This discovery marked a significant breakthrough, shifting the search operation 3,000 miles south of the last military radar contact. International efforts were made to conduct multiple search operations in this region, focusing initially on the surface of the Indian Ocean for any trace of the missing aircraft. But this wasn't a small search area. It covered vast expanses of ocean, largely unexplored, a part of the ocean that had never been explored in depth, estimated to stretch 700 miles along the arc, with the potential crash site lying within a 140-mile radius on either side. The race against time had begun, as those who lost their loved ones in MH370 held their breath, hoping for answers in the vast stretch of the 7th arc. Despite multiple efforts, MH370 was nowhere to be found. In April 2014, with no debris found on the ocean surface in the 7th arc, surface search operations were stopped, and the focus shifted to locating the aircraft's black box in the depths of the ocean. The underwater search for MH370 launched the largest and most expensive operation in the history of aviation. 3 years later, even after an international effort and an expense of over 160 million USD, the decision was made to call off the search for the lost airplane. MH370 couldn't be located. However, in July 2015, a breakthrough occurred when the first piece of debris from the plane was discovered, but not in the search area. The right-wing flaperon was found washed up on a beach on the French island of Réunion, thousands of kilometers away from the search area in the Indian Ocean. In 2018, an American company called Ocean Infinity stepped in and struck a deal with the Malaysian government to search for MH370. They agreed to conduct the search at their own expense.
We cannot keep on searching for this 370 for forever.
Government only paying them if they actually found something. A new search operation began using highly advanced underwater surveillance vehicles capable of exploring deep beneath the sea's surface. Their advanced technology allowed them to map the seabed with detail, revealing underwater landscapes of the Indian Ocean never seen before. But it wasn't easy. They uncovered underwater volcanoes, sprawling cliffs, and vast mountains spanning hundreds of miles along the 7th Arc area. Despite months of tireless effort, the Ocean Infinity team came up empty-handed. Their high hopes turned to disappointment as they failed to find any valuable information, leaving them speechless. The first theory points towards Captain Shaw, but what could be the reason for him to be doing this? According to this theory, Captain Shaw intentionally locked the first officer out of the flight deck, disabled communication systems, and depressurized the aircraft to cause hypoxia, and then he flew the plane along the Thailand-Malaysia border to avoid military detection before heading south to a remote location. However, the official report disputes this theory. It says there were no signs of psychological issues or major life changes in Captain Shaw, and it's unlikely that someone like the first officer, Farik Abdul Hamid, with limited experience on the Boeing 777, could pull off such a plan. The inquiries haven't turned up any clues either. No personal issues between the captain and first officer, no financial strains, and no recent changes in behavior were found. Analysis of the radio conversations also showed no trace of anxiety or stress in their communication. So, the question remains, what really happened to MH370? The second theory points towards potential hijackers aboard the flight. The primary suspects were two individuals traveling with stolen passports, both Iranians, Puria Nur Mohammed Merdad and Delavar Sayed Mohammad Reza, one with a stolen Italian passport and the other with an Austrian passport. But after a thorough investigation, it seems they had no intention of carrying out a terror attack. They just wanted to use those stolen passports to escape to Europe for a new life. Interpol confirmed it too. Another theory down the drain. The idea of cyber terrorism remotely controlling a plane was also not ruled out. Advancements in technology could have made it possible. However, there was no evidence to support the belief. Speculations also circulated regarding the possible involvement of the United States in the disappearance of MH370. It was suggested that the plane was flown to their military base on Diego Garcia or instructed to land there directly. These allegations were even mentioned in a White House briefing, but they were outrightly dismissed. There was no evidence to support such claims. One reason for this theory was the co-pilot's mobile phone signal and the plane's westward turn, which could indicate a path toward the island. The FBI thoroughly analyzed the captain's flight simulator and found nothing suspicious. One theory emerged as most likely to have happened. It was believed that the passengers and crew of MH370 may have lost consciousness due to oxygen deficiency, including the pilot and co-pilot. It was suggested that everyone in the plane passed out, with the autopilot continuing to fly until fuel exhaustion caused it to crash into the ocean. However, the question remains, what could have caused oxygen deficiency in the airplane? From an electrical fire in the cockpit to potential hijacking, numerous theories were made here too, yet none supported by evidence. Some ideas about what happened to MH370 were made that are pretty hard to believe. One theory suggested that the plane might have been swallowed by a black hole, but experts quickly explained that this couldn't be true, because a black hole would swallow up everything, even our whole universe. Another idea was that a meteor hit the plane, but the chances of that happening are extremely low. In 2018, on the 4th anniversary of MH370's disappearance, someone got strange messages with coordinates in Indonesia. These messages hinted at alien abduction. The person who got the messages also said someone took pictures of their house, but experts think it was probably just a prank or a hoax, not something real. Richard Godfrey, a retired British aerospace engineer, and Vincent Line, a former researcher from the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies at the University of Tasmania, have devoted years to solving the mystery of missing MH370. Their tireless efforts offer hope of closure to one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Richard is confident of finding MH370. He firmly believes that with one more search, in the right location, he can bring an end to this mystery. According to him, the evidence is there, waiting to be discovered. On the other hand, Vincent Line also suggests that the precise location of MH370 isn't a mystery. Through his research, he has pinpointed its resting place, a deep, 6,000-meter trench, 1,500 kilometers west of Perth, along the longitude of Penang. Their dedication echoes the sentiments of countless individuals worldwide, desperate for answers. But what revelations lie in the wreckage of MH370? Locating the wreckage and finding the black box could reveal who was in control of the plane and why it changed its course. It could improve aviation safety in the future. The search for MH370 has covered a massive 92,000 square miles of the ocean floor. To date, 27 pieces of the plane have been discovered on various islands across the globe. However, the quest to locate the airplane itself still awaits resolution. In May 2018, the Malaysian government declared that it would not support any further search efforts, stating,
We cannot keep on searching for this 370 for forever.
This decision reflects the immense challenges in locating an object over 4 kilometers beneath the ocean's surface, thousands of kilometers from land. Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott also reflected on the difficulty of the task in an official statement.
Trying to locate anything 4.5 kilometres beneath the surface of the ocean, about 1,000 kilometres from land, is a massive, massive task, and it is likely to continue for a long time to come.
For the families of the 227 passengers and 12 crew members, the pain of not knowing what happened to their loved ones is unbearable. It's been 10 long years since MH370 vanished, yet the wounds of loss are still raw, and the ache of uncertainty remains. Closure seems like a distant dream. Will we ever uncover the truth behind MH370's disappearance? Will the families find the closure they so desperately seek? The answers remain covered in mystery, waiting to be solved. Only time, money, and the dedication of seekers will bring the most awaited closure to one of the biggest mysteries.